Got it? Roll call when you're ready.
Okay. Mr. Jerkins?
Here.
Mr. Elzey?
Here.
Mr. Kerrigan?
Here.
Mr. Kreese?
Here.
Mr. Linderman?
Here. All right, Doug, I guess you're gonna give me a little bit of guidance here. This next thing on the agenda is swearing in the new members.
Yes, sir, we need to do that in order to have quorum. So, Madam Clerk, you're going to swear in both members at the same time. If you guys could please stand.
Okay, I'm gonna just ask you to state your name, okay? I
Rob Kreese.
Herb Jerkins.
do affirm that I will support and defend
Do affirm that I will support and defend
the Constitution and government of the United States and the state of Florida,
the Constitution and government of the United States and the state of Florida.
that I will support and defend the ordinances of the city of Mexico Beach,
That I will support and defend the ordinances of the city of Mexico Beach.
that I am duly qualified to hold office under the Constitution of the state and the charter of the city of Mexico Beach,
That I am duly qualified to hold office under the Constitution of the state and the charter of the city of Mexico Beach, and will faithfully perform the duties. I think I
and I
went
will
too far.
I will well and faithfully perform the duties of the Planning and Zoning Board of the city of Mexico Beach, Florida,
And I will well and faithfully perform the duties of the Planning and Zoning Board
of the city of
of
Mexico
Mexico Beach,
on which I'm about to enter.
on which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you guys very much, and welcome to the board. Next on our agenda, Mr. Chair, is elect a new chairperson. So we have to do this now, and then we'll do it again in February, just as a point of order. We do that annually now. So amongst your group of five, you make a suggestion.
So to clarify, this is just for this meeting.
In January. And then we select another chair or the same chair, however it works out, but we do that every year in February going forward.
If Jack will consider it, I recommend that we move that Jack be selected as chairperson.
Any interest from anyone?
How are you able to, last time I emergency, I'm not sure every time. I'm sure you're able to do it.
Yes, I have the time.
Okay, so is that a nomination?
Yes.
I second that nomination.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, Madam Clerk, can you read the roll?
Mr. Jerkins?
Yeah.
Mr. Elzey?
Yes.
Mr. Kreese?
Yes.
Mr. Linderman?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Kerrigan, you're now the chair of the P&Z Committee Board, and you can go forward. The next item on the agenda is from our City Attorney's Office for Sunshine Law Training. I'm just going to go over some brief points and outlines, and go ahead, Mr.
Yes, this is just a really quick, brief overview of the Sunshine Law. There's a very good, strong possibility that our next City Commission meeting that the City Council will mandate that the state ethics training, that the board members of the P&Z take that. But there's basically, and Tammy's going to email you the next class that is available for that. There's two aspects of the Sunshine Law. That's public meetings and public records. For as far as public meetings go, it's basically just simply that no two of you can discuss any matter that may come up before, that's pending before the board, or may come up before the board, unless you're at a properly noticed public meeting, basically meaning here. As far as public records go, you're going to be dealing mostly with email communications and other such social media aspects. And what the important thing to remember about that is, it's not the owner of the device or the account that's important. It's what the communication or what the nature of the communication is. If it's dealing with anything that's city business, that can be subject to a public records request, regardless whether it's on your own personal email account, whether it's on your own personal cell phone, it doesn't make any difference. The other aspect that we really need to pay attention to is just basically social media such as Facebook, Twitter, stuff like that. If you get into any conversations on Facebook or something to that respect that ends up talking about city business and another one of you ends up on that conversation, that's a violation. So you really need to pay attention to that. And that is just a real quick, simple overview, and it's strongly encouraged, and it's gonna be mandated, I'm assuming, at our next city council meeting, that you gentlemen take this.
It's not horrible. I sat through it with Robert Pollock a month ago. It's okay.
That's a quick question. When, in the manuals, reading comp plan and things like that, if you don't understand something completely, can you talk to somebody else on the board, or is that out of place? I mean, just talking about what's in here, discussing something like, hey, this is my opinion of, this is what I think it means.
Well, what is in there would potentially come before the board.
Okay.
So I would say
So
no.
pretty much, okay.
So you utilize me as your liaison. If you've got a question, you can email me or call me directly. We'll get the answer back to you, either written or in a meeting. But I'm allowed to go between each one of you guys, just like I do between the city council. And I can't meet with the two of you guys at the same time outside of this, even if we're just talking about education, those types of things in our land.
And you could also call me if you have the legal questions as well.
Any other questions about the Sunshine Law? We're just kind of brief overview. Like he said, there'll be more coming up down the road. We're just kind of make sure everybody understands. Big Brother's always watching, emails and things of that nature, so please be mindful. All right, Mr. Chair, the next item on the agenda is a consent agenda. We have two forms of minutes, one from October 3rd and one from November 7th. At the last meeting, we had some changes that needed to be made. We've made those changes as requested in your packet, which you've had in time to review. Did you see any other changes? If not, this item is up for you for approval.
I didn't see any other changes yet.
Do we need a motion for that?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So I make a motion, and I say accept both minutes, October 3rd and November 7th.
As long as everybody agrees there's no changes that we made on November 7th.
I second that. You have a motion and a second.
So this is consent agenda. You can approve by aye if there's no further discussion. Or nay.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
We move on to the regular agenda.
Yes, sir. Floor is yours.
Okay, so the first piece of business before the board is ordinance 802, large-scale land use amendment. Carly Hanson, city attorney. So we go to,
I'll just give a brief overview. This is a large-scale land use amendment, and this deals with the 80 acres that the city bought from the St. Joe Company, which will be annexed into the city at our next meeting next week with the city council. And when you do that, you have to bring it in with the zoning criteria, and that's what this is. It's going to be brought, right now it's Bay County Timberland Agricultural. It's going to be brought into the city of Mexico Beach as public institution.
We also have from our planning group, Carly, with any further explanation you have there?
So, right, just to add to what Clint said, this is a state process because of the size of the parcel. It requires state approval to change it from Bay County Agriculture to Timberland to any designation within the city. Because the city of Mexico Beach does not have an agriculture designation, it was determined that public institutional was the best use fit for it. It is deeded as a master stormwater management facility with potential parks, park and recreation facilities. And So this packet you have in front of you is what we prepared to send to the state. Once it receives your approval and city council approval next week, we'll begin the transmittal process to the state and the reviewing agencies.
So in there you have that draft ordinance, and the reason that it's in here as a draft is because it has to go to future to the council for review and approval. So it has to have behind you review of the planning and zoning. If there's any changes, additions, anything that you guys like to discuss to this is your time.
I believe this is something that you introduced at the last meeting. We touched on this.
Well, it was actually pulled from the last meeting with the time certain of having it heard here, simply because it was a large scale, and I was asking our city planner for a little help on it. It was a little bit much for me.
You know, looking at read everything for the land use that this could be used for. And I actually heard from somebody who said, well, you know, they could build condominiums there. And looking at everything that's in there, you know, it's for schools, churches, condos are in there, and other things, but looking at the special warranty deed, reading that, it specifically says in there that the permit is for building the master stormwater facility. And that has to be totally completed before, is my understanding here, anything else can even be put in, walking trails or anything else.
Yes.
And if I read this correctly, it's 1 year. The city has 1 year to start construction on the stormwater, and then it has 10 years to complete it, otherwise it goes back to St. Joe Company.
That's correct.
Could I ask a point of clarification? Before we ask questions or discuss, do we have to, should we conduct a public discussion first?
Yeah,
We should do that.
You can come back. Remember, this is the only time it's gonna come before you. It'll go to council for 2 readings. It only comes before you now. So if you have questions or concerns, we can hit all those, but you do give the public a chance to explain after she's done it.
Yeah.
If there was a question specific to what she had, it was okay that we do that, but we still have to go back to the program.
But just to say what Rock said, it's not only the zoning designation that's gonna restrict what can be done with this property, it's that warranty deed.
Right
Yes.
here. Okay.
So when I wrote to purchase that, some of the items there were in steps going forward. Didn't have to be like shovels in the grounds because we're doing a lot of mitigation prior to that. So we're meeting those requirements, just to be clear. Any other questions for her before we go back?
Anything else that you have to share with us?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carly.
So Doug, you ready to open it up to the public?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Okay, any comments from the public? If you'd just please come up to the podium here and state your name and your address.
Lisa Logan, Maryland Boulevard. I just wasn't clear on what Doug just said about the 1 year. We have 1 year to start construction, and you said that it doesn't have to be shovel ready to start that you are working on it. Is that correct?
Yes, we have mitigation that we've been doing, going through the process. They wanted to make sure we kept process going forward, one of which was securing the $10 million in funds to do the project would count towards moving the project forward. So we're keeping in touch with St. Joe Company to make sure they understand all those things we have. We don't have to start digging the stormwater pond, but we have engineering work, we have wetlands work that we're working on, all those kind of things count towards going forward.
Did you get it in writing from St. Joe?
It's in the contract.
Okay.
Is there something else?
Hi, I have a question. I just heard Doug's, I'm
Name-
sorry.
Name and address.
I think you know me, Michelle Miller, sometime, what kind of mitigation is gonna be taking place in this? Because I think we have a policy, ordinance about mitigation of our wetlands.
I don't know what you mean specifically, but mitigation has to do with evaluating those wetlands. We have to work on the types of the trees, there's stuff that was on that property prior to us purchasing it that we have to go through, so there's just a lot of technical behind the scenes stuff that engineers are doing, so I don't.
Mitigation is meaning that you take some wetlands and you get wetlands somewhere else, most likely not here in Mexico Beach because we don't have any, and you mitigate it through a mitigation company to take those.
That's one way, yes,
records
but that's
and
not what I was
get
discussing. That's one way to say
That's
it.
why I wanted to clear up
Yes,
that we're not mitigating this, because we're supposed to be using this for our wetlands.
Right.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Anyone else in the public have anything? Come on up.
Hello, I'm Denny Jones, 71st Street. I heard this gentleman say condo, and I just kind of, is that part of the intentional plan for this?
No.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
We couldn't do that.
That got me thinking.
We got this property for $64,000 because we're gonna use it for a stormwater facility. Otherwise, it would have been much higher if we were gonna do something like that.
Okay. Is there actually a plan of what it's gonna look like and where it's gonna be situated?
Yes, sir. I have that in my office. I'd be glad to show you that. It's just like what they discussed in the resiliency plans. After the storm, it has a large storage pond at the north part of the property, and then some walking trails eventually that raised paths throughout the wetland.
Okay. And then, I mean, obviously, we're all, the elephant in the room is, could it ever go residential? Would you ever zone it residential and commercial, and is the St. Joe poison pill adequate enough so that would never happen?
Yes.
Okay.
You would have to go back to the, we tried to do something like that.
Okay, I'm not saying you would, I just, in my mind, I just wanted to ask the fair question, see if that would be covered under that poison pill.
It is.
They were very specific.
Okay. Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Shannon Jones, First Street, wife, his wife. What, I guess my question is, what can be built under public? It says public, to me, that's like a wide range. What's public? Is that schools, prison, churches? What's public? It's like the only reason that we bought this property. We looked everywhere. I mean, you know, y'all don't care, but we looked everywhere, and the only reason we bought this was because I had peace out my back door. Like, that is the only reason. And to think that that piece may be jeopardized, I would just like the opportunity to know that I could sell and get out, cut my losses down, to be honest with you. Because I cannot look at a building out my back door. If I'm gonna do that, I'm just not doing that. So I guess I just need to make sure that we're very transparent in that what could be public, what could be back there behind me, so I know. That's why I have the information to make a decision.
Do you want to answer some of that, please?
Right, so just using the National Wetland Inventory, a wetland survey hasn't been presented to me on the site, but using the sources we have available, it's almost entirely wetland. And the city has some pretty stringent policies on not developing that. And then criteria that has to be found.
So if that, not to interrupt you, but if that was surveyed and the conclusion was that there aren't as many, this is not as wet, whatever, as we think it is, and now, oh wait, but we can do this, 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 and this, and this. So this is dependent, I'm just thinking this may be dependent on what the investigators find, or what the environment, whoever goes back there finds.
Right. Within the category, we are asking the state to change it to the public institutional. You can have public houses of worship, cemeteries, public institutions, public uses such as parks, government buildings, recreation space, utility, and similar uses.
Okay, so we could have a 2-story recreation center or a big.
It have to meet the other requirements, but yes.
Interesting.
And the warranty deed
Right.
is specific to what is allowed to be built under that, or they take it back from us. So
If we were ever gonna build, the city's
I
never
guess
gonna
I'm
build
just
condominiums.
seeing things pop up.
It
Big
cannot be residential.
residentials.
It cannot be
And then the
residential
last-
under this zoning district.
And in addition, if grantee attempts to sell the
Yes.
property to any
I haven't
other,
read that.
any other,
But we all know those
Then
contracts can
state
be kind of renegotiated, you know, depending on what.
the idea behind this property is to create a regional stormwater facility that keeps the lowlands and Mexico Beach from flooding.
And I hope it's,
That's-
I hope it's
that-
true.
that's what the
and-
money
over the
was-
last 20 years, I probably
I hope it
dealt
sticks.
with about 50 of these, of warranty deeds and such from the St. Joe Company.
Okay,
And I'm hard to think of one that they ever got let go of their reverter clause.
Okay.
They just don't do it.
okay. That's
It's not
good to
saying
know.
that it couldn't happen, but
That's
I've
good to
just
know.
never seen it.
And that's why we have the money from the government to build this regional stormwater facilities, because we've identified this property as a specific use for that. So that's what the $10 million is gonna go.
Which would be nice if it's that, and walking trails, et cetera, et cetera.
That's
It's
totally
the only,
the plan.
it's the only plan there is, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other comments, questions from the public? Anyone else like to hear? Okay, not, Doug, can we move to the council now?
Back to the board here for you guys to discuss, yes, sir.
Okay, any questions?
No, I've answered, you know, I looked at everything, what it could be zoned for, and once the city got the property, I think it was the best thing that could have happened. Because I was the same way, I lived here like everybody else, and thought that could have been another development going in the future. And this is great for the stormwater, because you all know what the problem is with the city, there's nowhere for it to go to. This is, and the deed, just reading what's in here, the way it's written, that's why I asked the attorney, and that's it, it's in there, this is what can be done with it.
I have a question for Carly.
Yes,
So I understand we still need to meet the state requirements or his state approval. This will be done after the council approves this?
yes, so it will go before the council next week, and then we will work on transmitting it to the state. It has to be done within 10 days of that approval. Then we will have comments back from the state and reviewing agencies, hopefully within 30 days, that's the timeline.
Just one little caveat, I don't think it's for approval, it's just for the first reading.
This is the first reading
At
for
the city
transmittal.
council.
Yes.
For
We do the
transmittal.
first reading, send it off to the state, we get their approval, put it back in front of the city council, and then for the second reading, we approve.
Okay,
Yes.
and then, just to be clear, this meets or has met the Bay County requirements? Is that correct?
It goes to Bay County for their review.
Okay.
They are a reviewing body,
How
yes.
about Tyndall Air Force Base?
It goes before them as well.
Awesome, okay, all right, thank
There's about 5 other ones, I think.
Yes.
you. All right, thank you.
And I got a question for
Yes.
Carly. So I understand that it's storm water mitigation, that's its primary purpose, but as far as visualizing it, is it an asset to the public as well? Is it gonna look like a pond when you say walking trails around it? Will it be in any way resemble Parker Park? What will it be?
Okay, thank you now. A little more.
So they're gonna go through the invasive species and things of that, they're gonna make sure that those are, the right type of trees are inside of there. It is a very large pond, and it's a retention pond, so it's not a detention pond. So the goal is for it to have water in it, work with another one on the other side of town and kind of keep them level. You know, it's gonna have these above ground walking trails that are built out of wood, is the way it's been conceptually designed.
Okay.
I think it's gonna be aesthetically pleasing. I mean, I think it'll have some spot people to park, you know, gravel parking lot, to be able to walk around and see there. Anything better than all the dead trees falling over and things of that nature, I think is aesthetically going in the right direction. We've also applied for a grant to do a fire break around it with Bay County. I don't remember how many feet wide it was, but to try to get it away from some of the houses around the outside. So that way, if you don't have fires, we just had this past year, they were kind of jumping. So we're trying to work towards making sure we don't have any of those problems while we're continuing the process. But I believe it's going to keep going forward. It's going to be a beautiful landscaped area. It is a pond. I mean, is it going to have a top golf hitting golf balls into it? No, it'll be a pond. So.
Do you have any objections to talking about the study that the college has done, the process of doing?
I don't think we have to do it right now. I mean, yeah, go ahead. They talked about, because they were reviewing some of the water levels and some of the things.
So
that
I think it would alleviate some of the issues or concerns about it. So we have a group of college students from Clemson University who are biosystem engineering students who are assisting with analysis for grants. And they're presenting their study, I think sometime this week. And based on their initial design and analysis to contain the amount of stormwater that we're looking at, it'll be a lot of pond. It'll be mostly pond, the 80 acres. But it'll still maintain its wetland type features as a pond. But it will have space, they believe, for walking trails, recreation areas. It won't be baseball fields or pickleball courts. probably, but it's probably gonna be more nature oriented. I believe that's what their study has I think that's what they're recommending we do with it, and based on their analysis of the capacity of it, I think it'll be primarily water.
So a lot of that study from that program that they did will go to the engineers that are working on the project as kind of some ideas that they can kind of expand on. So it was a good free service that we got through the college. So it kind of opened our eyes a little bit for opportunities inside of it.
Any other questions?
Did they give their study, did they say mostly water, I mean, any acreage amount, did they say that at all, or?
I can't say they're there yet, but it's all based on how much retention is required. And so, I think it will be primarily wetlands, of some sort. It'll be seasonal probably, but it'll be primarily wetlands.
Anyone else on the board? Questions?
I did not.
Doug, what's our next?
Make a motion to recommend or not recommend this to the city council.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion on this?
I don't know.
So, I would make a motion that we recommend approval to the city council for this amendment to the LDC and comp plan.
I will second that.
Motion and a second.
Mr. Jerkins,
Yes.
Mr. Elzey,
Yes.
Mr. Kerrigan,
Yes.
Mr. Kreis,
Yes.
Mr. Linderman.
Yes.
All right, thank you guys. This will be on the next agenda for the city council. We'll be removing the draft from ordinance. The next item on the agenda is 804 eating and drinking establishments. At the last city council meeting, I requested to have this item come to P&Z for review, following a review by the planning department. With that, she's put together a plan going forward, and Carly is here to explain that for you guys before we go to public discussion.
So this is something Doug asked me to look into. I provided a little cover sheet to give y'all some information, as well as to compare what we're proposing with surrounding cities or municipalities in the area. As the memo shows, this is, Mexico Beach is both with and without this revision comparable with the surrounding municipalities. The goal of this ordinance is to kind of take away some of that gray space of whichever is greater, or 1 per 100 square feet, and leave it at 1 parking space per 4 seats. The requirement now requires every business eating or drinking establishment to provide enough parking to accommodate everyone who may drive to that place at one time. That's not really necessary, and cities have, especially now in the planning field, been seen to provide too much parking. So what we're trying to do is find the right size minimum parking requirements to ensure that the cost of unnecessary parking does not discourage investment within the city. Do y'all have any questions?
If there's nothing else from Harley, you can open it up to public discussion.
Okay. Any members of the public that would like to have any questions, so please come up to the podium. Please state your name and address.
Yeah, Bill Hamilton, 212 Highway 98. Just a question, I didn't see it mentioned in any of the properties. What does ADA require as far as handicap parking? Is it based on per seat, on square footage, or are we going to be in compliance with that with the new requirements?
The state requires it by how big your parking lot
Square
is.
footage?
Yes, or how many spaces you're providing. I believe it's, you have to have 1 per every.
10.
Yes, this is not changing the state requirement. every
All right,
parking
so
lot
we-
will still have to be in compliance with that.
And one comment, not part of that, but in general, several decades ago, I was president of my fraternity at the University of Alabama. And Robert's Rules of Order called for a motion, a second, discussion, and then vote. Seems like we're having discussion, then second and vote. It's not following the proper Robert's Rules of Order unless it's changed. I noticed this one and in council meetings do not follow that procedure. Comment.
Understood.
Anyone else in the public? Please come forward.
Jim Bush, 130 Palm Street. I'd like to state up front, I'm opposed to the proposed change. And in support of my position, I'd like to refer you all to the memorandum that's in front of the new proposed ordinance, written by it's published by the city administrator, which I believe is used to support the recommendation favoring the change. And the reason I say that I think it's a recommendation because there were no negative effects, possible negative effects addressed in this memorandum. I'd like to start out going down to the first paragraph. In efforts to support commercial development within the city, this change to remove excessive parking requirement. I would argue that term excessive parking requirement is argumentative. And in support of that, I would ask you to look down at paragraph 2. A sample similar parking requirement was collected is consistent with surrounding municipalities. I mean, if it's consistent, then how can it be excessive? In fact, if you look and examine what other municipalities currently have in their requirements, I would argue that the municipalities that are shown here, their requirements are excessive to what ours currently are. I'll give you a minute to look at that.
Do you believe that the grandiose size of some of our neighbors, such as Bay County, would have something to do with that? Because Mexico Beach is small, it's finite. Our lots are much
There was a
smaller.
reason that the prior planning and zoning board arrived at this decision. Okay. And they planned this out. In fact, I can say they went into great detail when they looked at this. And there was a reason they came up with that, because they were trying to prevent spill-off of excessive parking into other people's property. And that's one negative effect that hasn't been addressed. What happens if you don't have enough parking? Where do those cars go? Do they just drive off and not give business to that thing, or do they park in other people's property? Okay, my second issue, okay, and he gives several reasons here. Potentially increase the amount of land available for open space, I have no problem with that. Or to allow for additional development in the form of greater densities or larger square footage. I would ask you to look at the purpose and the intent in the current comp plan. And if you look at that, Mexico Beach doesn't want larger or denser facilities. And if you want to take a look at the comp plan, I'll give you an opportunity to do that before I go on. Okay, next issue. Further protect environmental resources by reducing the amount of impervious surfaces required. Parking doesn't require impervious surfaces. There's a code right now, and it's also in the comp plan and the LDR, that pavers are pervious. You don't have to put concrete down. If you look at a bunch of the businesses out here on 98, they're parking on gravel or on grass. You don't have to have an impervious surface for parking. In fact, I think if you look at it, with the exception of probably the filling stations and the hotels, I'd say 50% of them out there are already pervious. Okay, now addressing, are there any questions on my position here? And then I'm gonna go back to what, again, the first negative effect, or the really major negative effect is, what happens if there are not sufficient parking places? Every city has taken and they've gone through great depths to ensure that there are adequate parking spaces and it's not excessive. Why would somebody, or why would the former planning and zoning board do what they thought would be excessive? I just need you to ask that question. Thank you.
That's a good, sure.
Excuse me? You got to talk after that.
Oh, sorry.
Anyone else?
Lisa Logan, Maryland Boulevard. I also oppose reducing parking spaces in Mexico Beach. Not going back over some of the things that Jim Bush already said, but we know that we have a parking problem in this town already for multiple areas. And I've been here long enough to certainly see what happens when establishments, particularly restaurants and bars, which this evidently pertains to specifically, when those establishments have overflow parking, it goes straight into the residential neighborhoods. The bar closes at 2 a.m. You have the patrons coming out at 2 in the morning, laughing, talking, slamming car doors, revving the car engines, shining their headlights into the houses on the side streets where they have parked. If you reduce the number of parking spaces, you increase the traffic that goes there because of our particular physical layout. We are not like most places that have extensive commercial property, particularly around already established commercial places. So our overflow goes into the residential sections because that's all we've got. Slivers of